Hi, everyone. Welcome to this extremely brightly lit panel on add-ons and plugins. I'm joined here with three of the developers who work on Minecraft Pocket Edition and Windows 10 Edition. So why don't you guys go ahead and introduce yourselves?
Okay. So I'm Jason Major, as Owen said, one of the devs on Pocket. I've done a lot of the porting features and stuff like that, but for the last 6 months or so, our focus has been on resource packs and add-ons.
My name's Adrian Orshulak. I've been working on add-ons for the last 6 months.
Yeah, and I'm Michael, also known as Sarge, and I created the tools for the Java version in 2010 that I use for modding, and now I'm leading the efforts to bring modding to our C++ versions, including the Pocket version and the Win 10 version.
So we have some demos, some live demos here that we can show off, which should help explain how these things work. I think first of all we're going to talk about the add-ons side of this, and then go into the plugins for the second half of the presentation. So let's take it away.
Yep. So as we said, so Adrian and I are going to show off the add-on stuff. So what I want to kind of get in first is, so the add-ons term kind of was first talked about last E3, but there wasn't really a lot of information forthcoming about add-ons, so I wanted to kind of just set the stage for what they are. So our grand vision for them is really anything that you can put in the game that will change appearance or behavior of things in the game. So that could be entities, entities, items, blocks, stuff like that. So by appearance, there's kind of three categories there. So it's the textures of things, so that's kind of the colors that you see all over the model. Then it's the model, which is the shape, silhouette when you look at it. And then the last one is the animations of the thing, so how they actually move in the world. And then for behavior, it's what do these things do in the world to make them kind of differentiate themselves. So that's kind of set the stage for this. That's where we want to go. We're obviously not there yet. This is going to be our first preview release in the .16. And so where we're at today is we focused on entities. And for the entities, we haven't hit the grand vision for entities either. So right now what you can do is you can change the textures and you can change the models on them. So animations is still not there. So you're still restricted in that if you want something to have arms and legs that move around, you need to choose an existing mob in the game that has arms that move up and around. So if you looked at the alien invasion that was shown at E3 and on the show floor and stuff, the villagers that were running around with arms and legs, those were actually reskinned skeletons. So we changed the model on them, made them look like villagers, but we wanted their arms to move around, so we used the skeleton as the basis for that. And that's what people are going to be kind of constrained for this first release, but it's definitely on our roadmap to get animations all data-driven as well as soon as we can. And then for behavior, what we have with the add-ons right now, so we have these JSON data files, they're text files, and we have a library of over 70 different pre-built behaviors. And these are all the things that we actually use for the current game. So when you get the 16 release downloaded, and then we have the beta out there already, and it's already using this, is all of the mobs that are in the game, they're already using these. So they're actually built on top of the exact same system and framework. So when you see a spider jockey spawn, it's because it has an add rider component on it that adds in there that says, I want to add a skeleton. And it actually has some rules on it about what conditions will restrict when that add rider component can get added and stuff like that. And so we're going to show some sort of kind of just the tip of the iceberg of some of the things you can do with what we've got there. We're pretty excited about what we can do. Obviously, there's way more we're going to get to eventually.
It's fun that even with that limited set of features, you can already do some kind of crazy stuff, which we can show off now.
Yep. So we got demo. Switch to the game. So we got the base game there. We've got a level that's kind of pre-set up. Don't jump in yet. And so one of the first things, I'm always partial to all the baby mobs in the game. And so I worked on baby zombies and got some of those things into the Pocket version. And so what I wanted to do was just kind of give people, so we're going to take one of the existing creatures in the game and make them be a baby. So you guys want to do spiders, skeletons, or Endermen? Enderman.
I think it's It's pretty Enderman focused, I think.
I think it's Enderman. Okay, let's do Enderman. So can you guys see that okay? Or do we need to zoom in some more? No, okay, let's zoom in a little more. Getting better? So here's the Enderman. So what I usually do when I'm building an add-on is I'll kind of have an idea of what I want to do. So I'll be like, oh, I want to make a baby version. So let's open up something that already has a baby. So in this case, Adrian's opened up the pig, and he's going to basically grab a component group that's called pig baby. You're going to want to grab maybe the whole component group. And a component group is a collection of components, and it's a way that you can add and remove collections of behavior at a time. And generally the way we use them is for people who are more tech inclined, we use them in kind of like what we call a state machine in game development. And for the state machine is kind of like, it's the, am I an adult or am I a baby, and what's different between those things. So for something like a baby zombie doesn't burn up in the sun, but an adult zombie does. So you want to be able to control which behaviors are on which version of the guy. So Adrian, what he grabbed is he grabbed the component group from the pig, is bringing it over to the Enderman right now, and he put a is baby, which for the Enderman should scale his head relative to the guy, and he scaled his size to 0.5. But we need something that actually selects when is he going to be a baby, because we could make him just always be a baby, but let's make him actually only sometimes do it. So we have what we call in there is an event system. So there's a bunch of built-in events, and then there's also ways with these components that you can trigger your own events. But for now, we're going to use a built-in event called entity spawned, and he's copying that across. So it has, inside of the entity spawned, it has a randomized group inside of there, and that's because you don't want it to always be a baby or always be an adult. So the default one for pigs is it's 95% of the time is a adult and 5% of the time it's a baby. So what we can do in there is we add and remove component groups. So let's get that copied. Yeah. Let's see what he's doing. Okay, so he's updated the randomized. So let's make it be, say, 50% of the time be a baby.
So the cool thing here is, I mean, this is affecting the behaviors for the whole of this kind of game world. It's not just a one-off thing. It's going to be permanently, there'll be Enderman babies spawning all over the place.
Yeah, let's remove the...
Which is quite terrifying in its own way, but, you know.
Okay, so we've got there, so the Enderman already had some component groups in there for when he's calm and when he's angry at you. So the trigger that'll make him do his creepy face and his head expands and stuff like that. So we're trying to preserve some of that. Hopefully we didn't miss any commas in here. So the JSON format that we use definitely likes its commas. I highly recommend, if you start messing around with add-ons, there's a few tools out there, they're called linters, that you can put the JSON files into, and they'll help you spot any syntax errors that you make in it. They're invaluable. We use them every day as we're working on this stuff. But once you get used to some of the rules around JSON, it actually becomes pretty easy to edit these files. Is it good to go?
I think so.
Okay, so one of the things we kind of preset this up. We built a world that on our worlds now is you can actually set resource packs and add-ons to be associated with your world. So even if they're not in your global list of things, that world will always load with that specific resource pack or that specific add-on. So we've built this world up that already has this add-on that we've created associated with it. So let's jump in and see our Enderman. Oh, there he is. So now we got a baby Enderman. And he looks like an angry baby Enderman.
He's so much less menacing than
like most
than the
babies,
adult.
he's not real happy most of the time. So, but that's our baby Enderman. So in the opening ceremonies, one of the things that was shown that I definitely got a pretty good reaction from the crowd was the rideable chickens. So we're going to do a quick demo, kind of show how rideable chickens were made. So yet again, we're going to grab some stuff from Pig, because Pig is one of the mobs that exists in the game that has some rideable behaviors on it. So this time we don't need to mess with any events or anything. So we've got there's 3 components that kind of work together, and we generally try to take these components and have them be a very specific set of functionality, because if we try to make them do too many things, then it's hard to mix and match and get that kind of remix behavior that we're really going for. So what we end up needing here is we have a rideable component, and what that does is it really gives you the interaction to, you can walk up to the thing, the little button will pop up that says ride automatically for you, tells you how many seats it has, like a boat has 2 seats, most things that you can ride have 1 seat. And then and it also had some, does the rideable have filter? That was something else. And then there is controllable, and that was something that we added for pigs. We didn't want to build that into rideable because controllable could be interesting for some other context. And that's the thing for the pigs, where you have the carrot on a stick that you can steer it around and control where it goes. And then there's a controlled by player, which specifically allows players to ride these things around. Because we also have things that are rideable, like the cows and sheep the baby zombies will jump onto and ride them around. So we wanted to keep these kind of intermingled. So we've copied all of those into chicken now?
Yep.
Okay, so let's jump in and I think we should go up on that house, that super tall house there. There's our little chicken, so we're now riding it. And we could do things like, we could try to do some like chocobo racing, make that chicken twice the size or something like that. We've been doing a lot of races there. This was one of the kind of the not predicted side effects of riding chickens, was that you can actually jump off ledges and cliffs and stuff, and they'll do their normal behavior of just kind of flutter to the ground, so you don't have to worry about fall damage and stuff like that. And we've actually had a lot of fun in the office with this particular one.
It's really impressive how quickly you can tweak these things and experiment with them. I mean, you guys obviously have experience with this, but that took like a couple of minutes, and you've already got something kind of fun and unique out of it.
And I think you guys also started making a nice document where we have a list of all the components that are in the game, so that it's easy to figure out what is possible and what is available to use.
Emily, please tell me if I get this wrong. We have minecraft.net/add-ons, which, is that up now? Okay, so that site is up now. So we're going to keep adding information up there. There will be definitely 1.16 comes out. We're going to have a Alien Invasion add-on is going to be up there, along with the level that we've had down on the show floor to show that. And we built that as a starting point for people to look at and see how we built our own add-ons. And in addition to that, our plan is to take all of the vanilla mobs in the game and put all that stuff up there as well. So you can see exactly how the pig got put together. You can see exactly how the creeper got built. And that is going to be a great starting point for you guys. And we want to put that document that Sarge was talking about with all these components and the documentation on there. And that's going to be kind of a living thing that we're going to be updating regularly. So each release, there's going to be new things in there. There may be some things we have to tweak, because this is our first time really doing this. So there's definitely a chance that we're going to have to kind of go, okay, we thought that was the way this component should work, but we need to tweak it a little bit and stuff like that. So we got one other one. It was actually, Adrian and I were kind of rehearsing this earlier today, and my 6-year-old was like, Dad, you have to make this thing. And we weren't planning to do it. We actually had a plan for a completely different thing, and we both laughed so hard we had to change it.
Cool.
So let's see. So this is, we're going to start with a sheep. And in this case, similar to what we did with the rideable stuff earlier, is sheep were already rideable because baby zombies can ride on them. So we're just going to remove the filter that was only letting zombies ride it. And we're going to go into Spider, and he has an add rider where he adds skeletons. But I don't want to add skeletons. Let's add creepers.
I don't think this will end well.
Oh, it's awesome. And hey, Adrian, so since this MINECON 2016 seems to be kind of all about purple creepers, can we make them be purple every once in a while?
You can make the sheep purple.
That's what I mean.
Sheep, yeah.
Purple sheep. You can make purple creepers, but you need an art package for that one.
So just a quick addition. There we go. All right. Should be good to go.
This is one of the scariest things I've seen in a while. Okay. So he's not too scary yet, but we have some. This is a developer build, so we have a way to quickly toggle between creative and survival. So let's see them now. So that's basically where we're at with add-ons today. So we've got this huge list. We're gonna get that list up there. Definitely we're interested in hearing all feedback that anyone has about add-ons and stuff like that. We're very excited about where we are, but this is gonna be a long process to get fully towards that grand vision I talked about at the beginning. And this is our first step, and I hope everyone has a lot of fun with it.
Very cool. Great. Well, great. Thanks, Jason.
So now we're going to switch over to Sarge, and he's going to kind of talk about the next evolution of add-ons that goes beyond kind of what we're showing with these JSON files.
And if we have time at the end of this part of the presentation, we'll take some questions from you guys. So maybe think some cool stuff up for the devs. Michael.
Okay. Yeah, so as you saw in the demo that Jason and Adrian just showed you, it's quite impressive already what you can do by just taking the features that are in the game, recombining them in really cool ways to make things happen. Like the creeper was really cool, the creeper sheep. But if you know the modding on the Java version is about programming. In the Java version, of course, it's Java programming. And we want to have the same power on all the C++ versions, which is the Pocket Edition, the Win 10 version. So we are not going with Java. We are using a programming language that is called C#, that is very similar to Java, but it has a few advantages. That's why we choose it here. And one of the main features will be that you can actually add completely new components and behaviors that can be used in combination with the add-ons, with the data-driven JSON files to create new interesting things that are not possible with just the behaviors that we have in the game in a vanilla version. So that's the main focus at the moment. We are also going to have APIs in the game that allow you to do things that you might be used to if you already created mods on the Java version that are very similar to that. It's a little bit more limiting than the Java version because on the Java version you basically have access to the whole game, to everything. And for several reasons, especially to make sure that we have a secure environment where plugins cannot do any malicious stuff on somebody's computer if you want to install and play them. We have to restrict a little bit what's possible, but we are trying to make them as powerful as possible, of course. So we are using the mono runtime. That's technology made by Xamarin. It's basically a way to get C# to work on all the platforms where we need it. And the way it works is similar to how modding works on the Java version, but we are loading and compiling the plugins when you actually start a game and when you enter a world. This had several advantages. One of the really big advantages is, and that's really important for me, is that the plugins that you actually get and install, they contain the source code. You can basically open them up and look inside and see, okay, how is something done? So it's a really, really good way to learn if you see a cool mechanic in the game that you like in a mod. You can just look at it, how it's done. You can try to do something very similar. I will just show a short live demo of what we have so far. And after that, I have two more slides where I can go a little bit more into the details. I have to switch over to the other computer for this. Okay, so as I said, plugins is all about really programming things in a programming language and create completely new things. We are very early in the development, so it's not something that we are going to release with like the next update, but we are still interested in showing it and getting first feedback on the direction we're heading to see if you see, especially if Java modders see something that's obviously not ideal, and also to see, hey, you can also tell us if we do something right. That's okay. Okay, so first off, I have a small demo prepared, and it's just, it's a little bit more technical, I have to admit, but I wrote a really simple plugin, and what we are going to do is just to show how we can create a custom plugin that hooks into our chat system in the game, and we can actually react to what people are saying in the chat. So the way that plugins are created is, first you always have a small, if this switches over to the other window, yeah, you have what we call a manifest file, and that basically describes what is in my plugin. One very interesting thing about the manifest files, by the way, is we are not going to use it just for the plugins. So these manifest files can contain add-ons, they contain resource packs, so you have a way to have your new resources like textures, like sounds. You can have add-ons that just tweak the values, combine things, and you can have code. All of this combined in one package that creates a new exciting thing in the game. So it's very technical. I'm not going to go into the details, but if anyone is interested in seeing our current format, you can just take a screenshot. Feel free to ask me afterwards about details if you want to know more about it.
Yeah, one of the things I'll say is the add-ons also use the same manifest. So if you want to make an add-on today, you actually need to kind of go in and take the manifest of whatever samples we put up there, if that's where you're going to start from. And one of the key things to make sure is if you scroll to the top of that, Sarge,
yes,
there's the UUID field, which is this, it looks like a whole bunch of characters and numbers and stuff, so that's a unique GUID. And that's what tells the game that this plugin or add-on is a different plugin or add-on than another one. So if you don't change those things from the samples and you try to get multiple things all on the same machine, the game's going to get confused and actually not know which one it's supposed to load. So make sure you change that, please.
Yeah, and another property of this UID that Jason just mentioned is, if you know the Java modding space a little bit, you know that a lot of mods actually, they have additional features if you install them along with other mods. So it's a dependency. It's either if you have a mod that completely just extends the functionality of an existing mod, it's what we call hard dependency. You say this doesn't make sense without the other mod that I'm working with. You can define this in the manifest. And there can also be what we call soft dependencies. It's just, hey, if you happen to find this other mod, then we are going to have a little bit of additional functionality where the mods work in more interesting ways together. And if you don't happen to find the other mod, then we don't need these features in there. So to show you a little bit of the code that we currently have, it's relatively simple and straightforward. We have an API created for it right now where you can specify things like handling event handler. Jason mentioned that there are events that you can react to in the data files. And we have even more complex, or a longer list of events inside the game that you can react to in the C# code with your program. So you can register. In this case, I say I want to register to the chat event because that's what I'm interested in. Every time something happens in chat, I want to do something about it. And I tell it, okay, I have this function that should actually just be called whenever somebody types something in chat. So I made a very simple example. It's just making sure that whenever somebody types a message in the chat that starts with a dot, I just send another message back to them, and I just say, hey, I pretend I'm the user with the name plugin, and I send back, hey, you posted this message to me. So let's just go into the game really quick to see if this works. Just starting my demo level here. I can just go into the chat, and if I just type anything, I have normal chat, but as I said, if I start with a dot, just dot test, then the plugin will react to it and send back, hey, you posted dot test. And we can try this real quick. Let's say we want a user called MINECON send back, hey, you said this. It's a very simple change. So we just start up this the game again. We go in there. And when I go into the chat and I type something a little bit longer, hey, MINECON, you said test. So it's really easy. Right now you saw I had to restart the game. That's just due to a bug that unfortunately is in the version that I am demoing with. It's normally that when you just leave the level for a second and load it again, it recompiles all the mods so you can easily change stuff. We were experimenting with what I called hot reloading. It's just while you're in the game, you press a hotkey and it reloads everything. But it turns out that especially if something goes wrong, it could corrupt things in the world. So it's much safer to just allow changes outside of the level where it can't do damage, because the last thing you want is to accidentally do any damage to your world. So, but one other interesting feature that I mentioned before is that a mod can interact with another mod. And that's something where I want to really quick show off how we do these interactions. So every plugin that you create, you have the option to expose your own API. That's just the way that the plugin can expose its functionality to other plugins to use. In this example, I have a very simple example. I created an interface that has one function that just says, hey, I can register a question and I get back an answer. Now, let's quickly implement this. So what I'm doing is I'm just using this interface. That is chatty. I have to copy paste this. So I'm just implementing this interface, and it's telling me that I need to add a using statement here. So what I'm doing now is basically just the interface that I defined that I want to expose to other plugins to be used has this function register, and I have to implement it by creating this function register down here. It says, oh, it's not implemented right now. So let's real quick create what we call a dictionary. And we say we want to register our questions and our answers here. I just go for a dictionary. Okay, I hope I'm not making any typos here. And then in our own functions, we just say every time somebody registers a new thing, we want to just store this in our dictionary here. So we add the question and the answer in it. And that's all that we need to do right now to store all the questions, answers that other plugins want to register with us. Of course, we need to make use of this. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going back to the function that we had before. We just saw if you type a message with a dot, send something back. And I tell it if you happen to find the question that is posted in chat in our dictionary, then please send back the answer that was registered with it. So we are looking for our event message, and then we need to define the answer. The way that this works is a so-called out value, so we need a string that holds our answer. And then we can just say, okay, if we find the question that the user posts in the chat, we want to send back the answer. So I'm just going to use the same that we have here. We send back our chat message to whoever user sent us the message in the first place. And we want to use, let's just say API is the username that we are using for now. And then we send back the answer. So, okay, and this should be all that is necessary for this short demo to add on to this chat demo. Now, of course, to show how it works, it requires another mod now that is loaded alongside with this one and actually makes use of this interface. And I want to show also that it is not really necessary to use Visual Studio for all this. Any editor is able to, where you can type text, is enough to get started. I use another programming environment here to create the other mod that's very similar. And what I did is I have this other mod that's very similar in structure. It also just registers in the system. But what we're doing here, instead of reacting to chat ourselves, we are actually just registering. We're trying to get the interface from the other plugin, and then we are registering a few questions and answers that the game should react to. So let's see, if I didn't make any typos, this should work. If I made typos, I can show off how we currently see errors in it. So I will just check real quick. There's a log file where I get at the end, okay, two plugins are compiled, so everything went well. Now it's the question, did I make a logical error? We can just go into the game again. Everything should be loaded. We're going into the text. So let's see if our old thing still works. We had .test, okay, MINECON, you said all is good. If I type normal things in the chat, I get a very normal answer. And I happen to have an answer, oh, this didn't work.
You're missing a return true, apparently.
I'm missing a return true? Okay, where did you see this?
In your...
in the code, probably?
Yes, in the code. Right there.
Oh,
Yeah.
you're right. Ah. Thank you.
If only all our programming was done like that.
So this is the game that you can play at a panel like this. Spot the programmers in the audience.
This is ultimate paired programming.
Yes. It works really well. So let's see if this actually was the problem. I hope so. Otherwise, I prepared a small cheat code here. I can just copy paste working code from a text file that I prepared, so I can show that.
We could just get that guy up here if you want, Michael, to to finish the rest of the demo.
I should use my cheat code. Yeah, that's probably easier. Yeah. So anyway, I have some code here, and I will probably see on the recording later what I did wrong. I can just copy that in here. Am I in the right file? So I copy this in here. Oh yeah, I see what my problem was. I forgot this part. I actually have to make this interface available to other mods, which means that if other mod asks this plugin, hey, do you have this interface? I should say yes. So let's see. So I'm only copying half of my cheat code in here. If that was my only error.
Chatbot system, you typed a slash by accident.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
There you go.
Paired programming.
Okay.
Paired programming to the win.
And we should also see that it compiled. Okay. The slash was actually not breaking the code. That's correct. It's the only symbol that didn't break anything here, so I was very lucky to hit it. Okay. So, okay. There we go. There we go. As one of my teachers always said, the moment you start doing something right, it will work. Let's see. We have more questions. I don't know. Everything? Yeah, okay. So, as you see, it's really easy. It's really easy. But we should go back now to the slides, and I have a little more details. Okay. So I showed briefly the format for the plugins in the manifest files. Features that we already have in there is what I call discovery is just figuring out which plugins are available, what can we use. We can load them. We have the soft and hard dependencies. What you saw right now was what we call the hard dependency, because the question and answering mod doesn't really make sense without loading our chatty plugin first. And then I showed how you can expose your own API that other plugins can use. And we have the interfaces in there. We have event handlers where you say, I want to react to chat events, for example. You can register what we call systems. That will be especially important later in combination with the components. And these are the plans for the future, because we are in early development. We made some good progress, but it will still require a little bit more effort before we have something that we can show that we want to release, because we should at least make sure that it's a little bit useful before we put it in one of our releases. So the next big step will be to have interfaces that integrate with more of the core systems. You saw chat in this example. We have so many things in the game, especially when it comes to the entities, items. The world generation will be a really big part. And then the first milestone that we're hitting for is basically making sure that everything that we have in the game should be accessible through our API. The second milestone, and we separated this explicitly, that's where we focus more on adding all the tools that are still missing to really create any kind of new original content. It will already be possible with the first iteration, but creating really new things that are not even in the game right now, that will be the bigger step after that. And we want to have more examples and documentation to show, and maybe some tools that help to create things like the manifest file, which is a lot of UIDs that are not really very easy to work with. My goal is also to take some of the features that we already have in the game, smaller features probably, convert them from the C++ code that we have right now into one of the plugins, and just ship one of the game features as an example with the API. Yeah, the first preview is planned for early 2017. That's where we hope to have something ready for you guys to try yourself. And until then, I'm really looking to get some feedback on the things that we could show so far. And yeah, I
That's
think
awesome.
we can
Go to the
let me see.
Q&A?
Yep, end of slides.
Great,
So
thank you, Michael.
I
That's
think we
great.
can go to the questions.
Cool, so we've got around 20 minutes left. If you've got a question for the devs, then yeah, I guess I can go out with the microphone. That's probably the best option. Oh, it's not wired.
This one's
Okay.
We have microphones.
You have microphones?
Yes, they have microphones.
Okay, great. Thank you. Audience participation. Okay, so yeah, we're ready. First question, please.
Do you expect plugins to work on the mobile platform, specifically on iOS?
Yes, that's one of the main goals that we have is this system that we are creating will be available on all the platforms that we support with the C++ versions, including systems like iOS. We are still trying to figure out the details, how it's technically going to work, but we want to have it on all the platforms that the C++ versions support.
Great.
Hi, I'm Jiggerbov, and as a map maker, I'm always interested in how to package these sorts of things, the add-ons, plugins, that sort of thing. What are the plans for distribution for us people to make maps?
Yeah, so one of the things that we've done in 16 is you can, at least in the PC version, I can't remember if we've enabled it in the other platforms, but on Win 10 definitely, when you go into your world, you can scroll to the bottom and there's a button that says Export World. Any add-ons or resource packs that you've set specifically for that world will actually get bundled into that, and we create a .mc world file. And that MC world file can basically get sent out however you want to, through email, through website, web portals, all that sort of stuff. And it's as simple as basically on a PC, you double-click it, it'll launch the game, import the world, and launch you directly into it. Or on iOS, and each platform's slightly different in exactly how it works, but we've definitely been able to like open them through email, download them from web portals and things like that, and it really kind of depends on your platform exactly how it'll work, but we're trying to get this easy import of everything in.
That sounds awesome, thank you.
Will that work with Realms as well then? If I put that on a Realms world, will that get
Yeah,
shared?
so the way Realms is working for 16 is you can export your world with all your add-ons, and then you can basically upload your exported world to your realm.
Cool. Very nice. Okay, next question, please.
I have a few technical questions. So is the eventual plan to have just the core game engine in C++, but all the content using the plugin system, even in vanilla?
Yeah. We want to have as much as possible, of course, in the future, created on top of the plugin system and keep like the core in C++. The main question that we need to sort out first is what are the performance characteristics of the whole system on different platforms. I wouldn't really want to just say we definitely convert everything and then we end up with something that runs really slow on some platforms. But the goal is that we get as much as possible on the system. And more importantly, the system needs to be powerful enough that we create new content using it ourselves. That's the best way to make sure that the system supports all the features that are necessary and that we have interesting examples that we can ship with the game.
Yeah, I got a little bit to add there. So one of the things that's important is not so much about whether the core game is done in C++ versus C#, but it's making sure that all the interfaces that we use to build the core game are exposed to the plugins.
Yeah.
So as long as we expose all those interfaces, it shouldn't really matter to you guys which language the core stuff is actually implemented in.
That's
Yeah.
exactly the point. Yeah.
And I had one other small thing.
Cool.
Will we be able to render with code and not just models? Because I know some mods will need to do that or they'll have terabytes of JSON.
Yeah, we're We definitely have that in mind. We don't have a solution quite yet on how to do that, but we're looking at those sort of things. We've talked about like how would you integrate a particle system into the runtime rendering and stuff like that. If you wanted a guy to just be a big swarm of fly particles or something like that, we're trying to think of ways to do that. We don't quite know exactly how we're going to do it, but we're certainly thinking about it.
Now,
Okay.
the rendering system on a C++ version is very different from how Java works. We will see if it's really necessary in the end, or if the tools that we can give you are enough so that you don't even have the need anymore to write your own rendering code, which is like probably the most complex problem to solve in modding.
Yeah, we do have, it didn't get far enough for 16. We have started some work on getting all of the models and animations data-driven, but it just, to get the rest of the stuff, we had to kind of pull people off that and work specifically on the behavior side.
Yep. Thanks.
Okay, over that side.
Okay. You pretty well halfway answered my question. My question is, as you move Minecraft into the Microsoft system, are you going to fully support those who prefer, like me, to work in the open source field with open source tools and be able to fully use your APIs?
The API is explicitly designed at the moment that all the plugins that you create with it are distributed in source code form. So I think it depends on how you define open source from your point of view. If you look at, can I see the source? Is it visible source, or is it a license
Well, what I
that
mean
is
is
really in
open source that I will be able to write code that will compile with Java, and it will be compatible with your work?
Right now we don't have explicit plans to make a system that works on the Java version in the same way as on the C++ version.
I see, but you're not going to continue to support the Java version?
The Java version will be fully supported in the future.
Yeah, it's just the add-ons and the plugins are currently, we're looking at the Pocket version for that.
Exactly.
I see. It's
But Java is definitely fully under development.
I really would be looking forward to working with your nuances, what you're doing with it now, but I don't care to get into new programming languages in order to use your system.
Yeah. Ultimately, our vision for this is that we want every version of Minecraft to have the same set of functionality. It's just right now we've got a Java version, we've got the console code base, we've got the Pocket code base, and stuff like that. And it's just, there's a lot of technical weight behind each of these versions, and the list of features in each of them is different. And we've been working on trying to get the same set of features in all the versions. And if you actually look across the board now, we're getting pretty close from a feature perspective. And then now it's kind of like, well, now, like, could we make the Pocket code run on a console? Those are the sort of things, those are the questions we ask ourselves all the time now. And then by doing things like that, if we ever brought the Pocket code to a console, we could actually run add-ons on console and stuff like that. And our goal is to get add-ons on there. We're just figuring out what's the right path to get there.
Yeah. But I think to answer your question is, we don't have this exact system on the Java version.
I see. Okay. All right, thank you.
C# pretty close, still semicolons and brackets. they also, in case you didn't know, when Microsoft bought Xamarin, they open sourced Xamarin, like legit open source, not Oracle suing Google open source.
Microsoft's definitely a lot more open about open source nowadays.
Things have changed. No more cancer. My question was about permissions. If you guys have thought about it or could talk to, because I'm thinking about doing like plugins where you're, doing web requests or checking your current GPS location and mapping real-world stuff to Minecraft things. Have you thought about, if your plugin needs to request permission to make a certain API call, that you could prompt the user for this, kind of like, apps do on phones through the App Store, that kind of thing?
Yeah. So we will definitely discuss this in more detail in the future, but right now the first goal is to get something done that is very safe and very encapsulated in a sandbox. So we will definitely in the first versions not have any access from within a plugin to other system resources. We have to look into which kinds of access to resources like, as you said, web requests or GPS make sense, and which ones we can provide later as a feature of the API in a safe way that it cannot be exploited on a platform to do bad things with it. But it's
I'm looking to build
definitely go for
Skynet.
later.
I want Skynet in Minecraft.
Yes, that's definitely something that we will discuss much later in the development process.
Oh, don't say that.
How much Skynet we can actually give you.
Your future robot overlords. Thank you.
Over that side, please.
Why do you choose C# over Java for writing plugins?
There are multiple reasons. One is not very technical reason, is that I prefer C# over Java personally. But that's not the main reason. We actually looked into many different options for weeks and looked at all the disadvantages and advantages of all the languages that could be used. And C# just turned out to have the most on the pro side, the most check marks. It's also very easy to integrate in games now that the monoplatform Xamarin made it open source when they were acquired by Microsoft, and it's very easy to integrate it. I personally also have almost 10 years of experience using Mono in a similar way. So yeah, all these things contribute to the decision to go with Mono and C#.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we've got a few minutes left. Maybe another 3 questions, do you think? Will that work?
Sure.
This side, please.
I have actually 2 questions.
Okay, I guess you can have a double question, and then we can it's okay.
It's
yeah.
quick. So, do you have any plans to add do you have any plans for plugins to be able to access GUIs?
Yeah, actually, so if you saw the Pocket dev panel that we did yesterday, Michael Lott was up there, and one of the things we've done with, if you've been following the Pocket version over the last couple of releases, you've seen a lot of UI getting changed and updated. The goal with that was we've actually been building and rolling everything out in a new UI system, and we've pretty well got everything in that system now. And all of those UI are actually inside of a resource pack. So you can use the resource packs to actually update it, and then the goal is to be able to use plugins to write the C# code that is the back end behind the UIs.
And also, is there going to be are plugins going to be as easy to install to your world as resource packs?
Yes.
Okay.
Cool. Over this side. Hi.
So I'm a Java person, but okay. So I think C# is objectively a better language than Java for several reasons. The only thing that I don't like is the stupid capitalization, but I can live past that. What I'm really curious is why are you compiling it at runtime? You can instead just have people distribute CLR assemblies and then run those. Because what if I really hate the fact that C# is one of those curly bracket languages and I want to write in F#? I know that Sarge likes F# for one.
I'm a big fan of F#, so I wouldn't object to add a F# compiler as well. But we should probably go into detail after this panel because it's a very long list of reasons I can give you why I really want to compile at runtime, at load time. And you will see that there are really good reasons, especially on the sandboxing security side. We get a lot of advantages out of it. And I personally care about the fact that the source code of every plugin will be easily be viewable by other players to learn from that.
Yeah, I think you have a point there. Like, I like the idea that you can just look at the code and you know how it works. I mean, you can use a decompiler for that, but yeah, you have a point. But the thing, how do I want to put this? I'll talk to you after the panel.
Yes.
Okay, let's do 2 more. So this is the second to the last. Okay, this side.
Okay, so I have a very limited amount of coding knowledge. So what would be the main difference between plugins/add-ons and mods?
You mean between the C# plugins and the data-driven add-ons and mods on the Java platform right now? I think the main difference is that on the Java version, there's this big problem that mods always break every time we update the game. It's not true for 1.9 to 1.10, but there's no stable API that is consistent over multiple versions, and the system we create has the goal to be as stable as possible. It's not 100% sure, never in an API, that it will forever be the same and never break, but at least you can do proper deprecation cycles. And most of the time, add-ons especially, but also the plugins, they will just work even when the new versions of the game are released.
Yeah, one of the things also, like by us componentizing everything, is the odds of us needing to change how these things work actually gets reduced, because we don't have these crazy inheritance hierarchies and things like that, where like with a traditional way to build stuff is you would say, okay, well, a pig is an animal, and an animal is a Pathfinder mob, and a Pathfinder mob is a mob, and et cetera, and it actually makes it really hard to mix and match and do these things. So it actually it increases the chances if there was some feature we wanted to add to vanilla for pigs, that we would have to go change something drastically, either in the inheritance hierarchy or things like that, and those cause ripple effects through the code base. But with the components now, we can just write a single component, add it to the game, and say, okay, well, now here's a new thing that's in the sandbox and the toy box for you guys to play with and mix and match. But another thing that's kind of different with the add-ons and plugins is add-ons, we kind of have multiple tiers now. So we've got the stuff that Adrian and I showed initially, which is just editing data files. You don't need to know any programming to do that. So it's literally just, here's some text, you go in and edit it, you can drop it in there, copy stuff that's there, play around with it. And I kind of consider it kind of like an entry-level way to create cool experiences. And then if you really want to dive deep into it, you can go into the plugin side and start building your own plugins and start creating brand new behaviors. And those plugins might end up, you can release them out to other people might use those plugins and their add-ons, and they didn't know how to program either, but they can start using plugins that say Sarge created, or people in the crowd out here start grabbing those plugins, and they can start using them as well. And I think we'll get a pretty cool ecosystem of all the sharing among all this stuff.
Thank you.
I like that you used the pig as an example.
Okay, so this is the last question, but after this panel, if you want to talk to the devs, I think you might have some time before the opening ceremony to discuss stuff. So yeah, last question, please.
Will you be able to edit global variables such as gravity and the length of days using JSON?
The goal is to eventually get there. Our current priority is entities, wrap up those kind of missing things that we don't have on entities. Like right now, you can't change their movement behaviors, you can't add animations and things like that. So like you can't make a zombie fly, but you could take a bat and make it look like a zombie, but he wouldn't animate like a bat. So there's some restrictions like that we want to focus on first. Then we want to get items and blocks eventually running through the system as well. And then we're going to start looking at other things, like there's things like world gen and global settings and stuff like that we'll eventually get to. I just don't know when.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone. Thanks for the great questions. Enjoy the closing ceremony, and yeah, thanks for coming to MINECON.
Thanks,
Cheers.
everyone.